In 1886, mining engineer John T. Reed heard a Paiute legend about a race of giants who waged war against native tribes near Lovelock Cave, Nevada. Official excavations in 1912 and 1924 recovered thousands of artifacts, including human remains measuring between 8 and 10 feet tall. These were the Lovelock Giants. But here's what's shocking. Over the past 200 years, more than 1,000 accounts of 7-foot-tall skeletons have been discovered across North America. Newspaper reports, scientific journals, and Smithsonian records carefully documented this. The Smithsonian Institution is mentioned dozens of times as the recipient of enormous skeletons from across the entire United States. So where are they now? Why aren't these incredible discoveries on display in any museum? The answer points to one of the largest cover-ups in scientific history. Legends of giants appear in cultures worldwide. Ancient Hindu texts describe the Satya Yuga, when humans stood 32 feet tall. The Old Testament mentions the Nephilim, offspring of fallen angels and human women. The Book of Samuel introduces Goliath, a warrior between 7 and 11 feet tall, possibly descended from the Anakim. Ancient Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, extraterrestrial beings from the planet Nibiru who came to Earth for resources. According to translations of Sumerian tablets, the Anunnaki genetically engineered humans by splicing their DNA with early hominids, creating Homo sapiens as a workforce. Some Anunnaki bred with humans, and their offspring became the Nephilim. When Nibiru passed near Earth 13,000 years ago, it triggered catastrophic flooding. This aligns perfectly with the Younger Dryas period, when nearly every ancient culture recorded a great flood. Many Native American tribes tell of giants who lived alongside them. The Choctaw speak of the Nahulo, flesh-eating giants they fought and drove west. The Paiute described the Sitekar, red-haired giants who arrived in Nevada thousands of years ago and also practiced cannibalism. After years of conflict, the tribes united and drove the Sitekar into a cave. They sealed the entrance with brush and set it ablaze. Sarah Winmucker Hopkins, daughter of Chief Winmucker, wrote that this wasn't legend, but history. She even wore red hair taken from a giant woven into her clothing. When mining engineer John T. Reed heard the story, he visited the cave. In 1912 and 1924, Lovelock Cave was officially excavated. At the entrance, extreme scorching was found. Inside, over 10,000 artifacts were recovered, including human bones showing signs of cannibalism. A sandal was discovered that would fit a size 29 shoe, belonging to someone over 8 feet tall. Clothing was found too large for normal humans. During the first dig, 2 mummified giants were reported, a female almost 7 feet tall and a male almost 9 feet tall. Both had red hair. In 1931, 2 more giant skeletons with red hair were found buried in a dry lake bed near the cave. But the giants weren't only in Nevada, they were found from coast to coast. In Peebles, Ohio, near the Great Serpent Mound, enormous skeletons were discovered. In 1872, a report described 3 skeletons measuring at least 8 feet tall with double rows of teeth in both upper and lower jaws. In 1891, anthropologist Frederick Ward Putnam found skeletons 7 feet or taller with skulls twice as thick as normal humans. In 1894, the New York Times covered the discovery of a 6-foot skeleton found near Serpent Mound by farmer Warren Cowan. Ross Hamilton documented a skeleton found at Miamisburg Mound measuring 8 feet 1.5 inches tall. Professor Thomas Wilson, curator of prehistoric anthropology at the Smithsonian, confirmed its authenticity, stating several similar skulls were discovered in Ohio's Hopewell Mounds, but the bones later vanished from the museum where they were displayed. In 1959, Dr. Donald Drogo unearthed a 7-foot 2-inch skeleton at Cresap Mound in West Virginia. In 1868, quarry workers found a 10-foot skeleton along the Mississippi River, but days later it disappeared, rumored to have been sold to a circus. The Worthington Advance quoted Smithsonian director John Wesley Powell in 1897. In digging through a mound in Iowa, scientists found the skeleton of a giant who must have stood 7 feet 6 inches tall when alive. In Steelville, Missouri, an 8-foot giant was discovered in 1933 and displayed publicly. San Diego had multiple giant skeleton discoveries, including one measuring 8 feet 4 inches in 1895, inspected by Smithsonian scientist Professor Thomas Wilson. On Catalina Island, amateur archaeologist Ralph Glidden claimed to find 3,781 skeletons between 1919 and 1930. In 1833, Mexican soldiers at Lompoc Rancho discovered a 12-foot sarcophagus containing a giant with a double row of teeth, surrounded by carved shells and stone axes. The skeleton was covered with quartz sheets inscribed with symbols. Newspaper accounts, scientific journals, and Smithsonian records documented over 1,000 giant skeletons across North America. Many showed strange physiology: elongated skulls, double rows of teeth, and bones far thicker than normal humans. In dozens of cases, these remains were sent to the Smithsonian Institution. So where are they? In 1892, ancient wooden coffins were discovered in Crump's Cave, Alabama, and sent to the Smithsonian. When researcher Frederick J. Pohl inquired in 1950, the Smithsonian replied they couldn't find the specimens, though records confirmed receipt. In 1992, researcher David Barron was told the coffins were actually troughs for feeding livestock. But Native Americans didn't use coffins, and North America had no cattle or horses before Europeans arrived. When Barron asked to see them, he was told the warehouse was closed for asbestos cleanup for 10 years. The suppression allegedly began in 1881, when John Wesley Powell appointed Cyrus Thomas as director of the Eastern Mound Division. Thomas believed Native Americans were primitive savages, incapable of advanced civilization or long-distance travel. This ideology, called isolationism, became official Smithsonian policy. Any evidence supporting contact between distant civilizations was declared fraudulent. Many discoveries turned out to be hoaxes. In 1882, enormous skeletons near Cincinnati were fake. The discoverer charged admission to view a normal-sized skeleton. Ralph Glidden's claim of 3,000 giant skeletons on Catalina Island was a scam based on a trick photograph. Photos circulating online often come from a 2000 to Photoshop contest. Science argues that giant humans couldn't exist due to the square cube law. As size increases, volume grows faster than surface area. A 60-foot tall giant would need bones capable of supporting over 550,000 pounds, but human bone can only support 19,000 pounds per cubic inch. The skeleton would collapse under its own weight. However, some reports describe bones and skulls much thicker than human anatomy, suggesting these weren't human at all. Is the Smithsonian covering this up? The story about Cyrus Thomas first appeared in a 1993 article by David Childress, making historians suspicious of claims about 19th century events emerging only in the late 20th century. But the Smithsonian has a problem: the sweet potato. Sweet potatoes are native to the Americas, yet an ancient sweet potato was found in the Cook Islands in the Pacific Ocean, carbon dated to the year 1000. That's 500 years before Columbus. Linguists discovered that Polynesians called it Kumala, while Ecuadorian natives called it Kumara. In 2007, chicken bones found in Chile matched DNA from Polynesian chickens and dated to 1304 to 1425. In 2020, DNA studies proved some Polynesians inherited genes from Colombians who lived 800 years ago. There's evidence of Chinese contact in 1200 BC, Indian contact in 2000 BC, and Arab contact in the 9th century. Some Egyptian mummies contain traces of tobacco and coca, plants native only to the Americas. In 1990, The Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act required federal agencies to return Native American remains to tribes, but the Smithsonian was specifically exempted from this law. They're under no obligation to return or even acknowledge what they possess. Mainstream science follows a predictable pattern when challenged: criticize, marginalize, attack, and censor. When Graham Hancock's documentary Ancient Apocalypse became a massive hit, The Guardian called it the most dangerous show flicks and labeled viewers as conspiracy theorists and racists. But censorship doesn't work forever. For 100 years, Egyptologists claimed Egypt was the first major civilization. Then Göbekli Tepe was discovered in Turkey, 5,000 years older than Sumeria. Then Bonkuklu Tala was found, dating back 12,000 years with evidence of agriculture, city planning, and even sewer systems. These weren't cavemen. As more time passes, more evidence emerges supporting alternate history. If giants walked the earth, eventually the truth will surface. If you're still watching this, you're one of the few willing to question everything. Hit subscribe because next time, we're uncovering another secret they've buried for far too long. The truth is out there, and we're going to find it.